Number 10. NSA surveillance. The Washington Post originally uncovered the existence of a National Security Administration and FBI program called PRISM, allowing the agencies to take photos, videos, emails, and even chats from various different servers and internet companies like Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and Apple. Anonymous then leaked 13 documents that they said detailed the specifics of the PRISM program. A statement posted with the leak said, "These documents prove that the NSA is spying on you, and not just Americans. Like we said, this is happening in over 35 countries and done in cooperation with private businesses and intelligence partners worldwide. We bring this to you so that you know just how little rights you have. Your privacy and freedoms are slowly being taken from you, in closed-door meetings, in laws buried in bills, and by people who are supposed to be protecting you." Number 9. Russian leak. 3 Russian entities, the Ministry of Culture of the Russian Federation, the City Administration of Blagoveshchensk, and the Governor's Office of the Tver region all lost hundreds of thousands of emails when the anonymous group hacked them and leaked over 700 gigabytes of data. The emails contain sensitive information like state policies regarding art, cinematography, archives, copyright, cultural heritage, and censorship. The group had also previously said that they managed to shut down Russia's space agency, preventing the country from having the power to spy using satellites, reportedly downloading and deleting confidential files related to the satellite imaging and vehicle monitoring. They also stole 35,000 different files from Russia's central bank, all of this coming as part of an ongoing group effort to get Russia to withdraw from their conflict. Number 8. Police documents. In June of 2020, Anonymous completed Operation Blue Leaks, which involved hacking and releasing a massive amount of police documents. They got information from over 200 different law enforcement agencies and gathered a total of 269 gigabytes of data. The documents included things like phone numbers, banking information, and even alleged crimes. The documents were apparently leaked to provide insight into the strategies and mindset of law enforcement. One person involved saying, "I've seen a few comments about it being unlikely to uncover gross police misconduct, but I think those somewhat miss the point, or at least equate police misconduct solely with illegal behavior. Part of what a lot of the current protests are about is what police do and have done legally. It's the largest published hack of American law enforcement agencies. It provides the closest inside look at the state, local, and federal agencies tasked with protecting the public." Number 7. Canadian centers. After an event took place regarding one of the group's members, Anonymous gained a bit of a vendetta against the Canadian government that led to their targeting. They leaked a high-level federal document that included information about the redevelopment of Canada's key diplomatic centers in Britain, the National Post even confirming it to be authentic. It was marked Confidence of the Queen's Privy Council and included information about the cost of the selling, relocating, and rebuilding of Canada's Foreign Affairs Department in London, but it was mostly focused on the eventual profit that would come about as a result. It raised many alarms within the government and population about just how secure our information is, and what other secrets could be at risk to be easily stolen and published. A spokesperson for Anonymous said that the information was leaked in order to try and influence the federal elections. Number 6. Census Bureau. Back in 2015, Anonymous targeted the United States Census Bureau, their hacking group compromising the data of over 4,000 workers. They did not share how they managed to get the information, but did release it from the databases, including usernames, emails, and phone numbers of government staff. A spokesperson for the Bureau confirmed the attack, saying, "The U.S. Census Bureau is investigating an IT security incident relating to unauthorized access to non-confidential information on an external system that is not part of the Census Bureau internal network. Access to the external system has been restricted while our IT forensics team investigates." Anonymous claims their motivation for the attack was to protest the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade negotiations, which were rumored to potentially lead to the privatization of services in the UK like free healthcare. Number 5. Chilean Army leak. In 2019, the people of Chile started protesting inequality, and things between the protesters and the police force and military quickly started to get violent. This led to Anonymous targeting Chile's military in a large leak of their information and data. The contents of 6 different email accounts and a total of 3,500 emails were hacked and released to the public. The information included things like meetings between army officials and businessmen, contact with foreign security firms, and even cooperation agreements with the United States government. 2 of the most prominent email accounts to be exposed were that of the financial boss and the director of intelligence for the army. All the emails were uploaded to an information distribution center and were made available to be accessed by anyone. After the incident, the Chilean army worked hard to implement further security measures and try to track down those responsible. Number 4. Federal Reserve. In 2013, Super Bowl Sunday was shaken up by not just a football game, but by Anonymous hacking into the American Federal Reserves. They managed to gain access to personal information of government members and banking officials, including their phone numbers, home addresses, email addresses, and passwords of around 4,000 different people. Anonymous apparently did this as part of an ongoing protest against the U.S. Department of Justice. A Federal Reserve spokesperson said, "The Federal Reserve System is aware that information was obtained by exploiting a temporary vulnerability in a website vendor product. The exposure was fixed shortly after discovery and is no longer an issue. This incident did not affect critical operations of the Federal Reserve System." Other attacks that took place as a part of the same protest included the hacking of the website of the United States Sentencing Commission. Number 3. Canadian security leak. There was another attack against the Canadian government that took place just before the first one that I mentioned on this list, all a part of Anonymous's grudge against Canada. These leaked documents revealed information in regards to Canada's spy agency, the CSIS, or Canadian Security Intelligence Service. It shared sensitive information like the size of its network of foreign stations, the volume of secret communications they handle, and their outdated system of information sharing. Before the release, the government had only previously acknowledged 3 foreign stations: Washington, London, and Paris, but a leaked classified document revealed that there were actually over 25, many of them, quote, "located in developing countries and or unstable environments." Apparently, their security systems had not been updated since the 1980s. A spokesperson for Anonymous saying, "We are now privy to many of Stephen Harper's most cherished secrets," Stephen Harper being the head of the country at the time. Number 2. Operation Hong Kong. Similarly to the situation in Chile, Anonymous's Operation Hong Kong came about as a response to the mistreatment of protesters. In 2014, they announced that they would be launching a massive cyber attack against Chinese government servers and bringing down their websites. An anonymous statement said, "Here's your heads up, prepare for us. Try to stop it. The only success you will have will be taking all your sites offline. China, you cannot stop us. You should have expected us before abusing your power against the citizens of Hong Kong." Throughout October of that year, Anonymous made claims that they had already managed to access many of the country's government websites, and apparently had sensitive emails that they were threatening to release. However, it doesn't look like any of these emails ever actually made it to the public eye. Number 1. Syrian President Leak. In 2012, Anonymous managed to hack into the Syrian Ministry of Presidential Affairs, gaining access to the email accounts of 78 staffers working under the current president. It was apparently a pretty easy job, as it was revealed that the man didn't have a very secure password. 33 of the 78 email accounts all used the password 12345 or 123456. Not exactly Fort Knox. Hundreds of different emails were revealed, including a conversation between the United Nations and the president's media advisor, preparing him for an upcoming interview with Barbara Walters. The year before this, Syria also received the attention of the hacking group when they hacked the Syrian Defense Ministry, changing their website to give a message of support to the Syrian people who were trying to fight back against the control of their president.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Nuclear Site List. Here on Most Amazing, we love lists. I'm Not sure if you can tell, but apparently the US government also fancies a list or two. Back when Obama was still running the show, a report was delivered to Congress. Well, it was supposed to be. The 266-page report featured every nook and cranny about the US nuclear program, and it was released publicly on the government printing office's website in draft form by accident. Yeah, just a casual PDF that shows us literal maps to stockpiled fuel used for nuclear warheads back in the day. We love those. The only PDFs I actually enjoy are those ones, actually. Does this stuff happen often? How does this happen? I thought this type of stuff could never happen, right? Well, MIT professor John M. Deutsch said these screw-ups do happen, and it doesn't look like a serious breach. I mean, it certainly sounds serious, but okay, we'll trust the government. Thank you, sir. Let's do it. Number 9, ClimateGate. Yeah, we had a smooth one off the bat. Now we're getting right into the serious stuff. Climate stuff. Climate change and stuff. A little different sounding than Watergate, but we'll get to that one later on, obviously. ClimateGate, this was back in 2009 when some hackers released thousands of emails and files, all from the Climate Research Unit in the UK. These documents, okay, hold on to your butts for this one, they show scientists suppressing the publication of research going against global warming. So this sparked a bunch of bad ideas because at that point in 2009, we just believed it. We just stopped listening at all. Climate change critics were like, aha, I knew it. It was all a conspiracy this whole time. The CRU responded and said the emails were out of context and that the planet is indeed heating up, and we're still in fact burning towards our demise. But these docs leaked literally weeks before the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Denmark, so peculiar timing, I'd say. Science fired back pretty quick. Scientists all around the world were actively proving at that point that humans actively are causing global warming. Today we're scrambling a bit more to figure this one out than 2009. Yeah, a few more of you believe this time around. Number 8, God Save the Queen. This one's quite grim, but I have to talk about it. Have you ever wondered what will happen after the Queen passes away? I mean, I know it's the last thing we want to think about right now because dark, obviously, but it's hard not to think of, especially when Politico magazine releases Operation London Bridge to the public. Yeah, what is that? This magazine somehow got documents showing each and every step in detail what'll happen when that fateful day arrives. There'll be phone calls to the Prime Minister, of course, would be first. Customs require that the Prime Minister is informed by the monarch's private security. Flags will fly at half-mast, of course, but oddly enough in this document the Queen's death is referred to as D-Day. Yeah, 9 days of protocols will follow afterwards, and after a service at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, that's when Queen Elizabeth will be buried with King George VI. It's dark, but I mean, imagine reading about this one morning in 2021. What an odd article. What a brutal way to wake up. Number 7, secret PowerPoint. Nothing sounds less cool than a leaked 41-slide PowerPoint presentation, but I'll do my best. Here we go. When it comes to the NSA, odds are this PowerPoint is going to be pretty juicy, right? This slideshow was often used to train US intelligence, and I gotta say, 41 pages? That's it? I did 45 on medieval knights in high school. That's all I'm saying. Step your game up. This program was called PRISM. You probably heard about this. This is a big deal. And it cost about $20 million a year. This was the highlight of the Snowden leak. PRISM kicked off back in 2007. See, originally they partnered with Microsoft, but once they were attached to Apple come 2012, that's when things got a little dicey, as most things are with Apple. The PowerPoint confirmed that the NSA has access to servers belonging to massive tech giants. Google, Skype, YouTube even, so I don't know, search history, you may want to delete that stuff. There was a summit in California which originally was tense. The United States was accusing China of cyber attack, but right after Edward Snowden leaked the PRISM tea, they didn't have much power at said summit. So China and Europe citizens were obviously not too pleased here. Yeah, leaked data, we don't like hearing about that. This one gets a little worse. Number 6, Big Brother is watching. Even allies of the United States are not safe here, okay? Thanks to Snowden, our boy again, gotta mention him a couple times in this list. At the end of October 2013, it was leaked that the states were spying on Germany, France, and Spain. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of eyes, a lot of spies. The NSA had tapped into 35 phones, not just a couple of dudes. They were spying on 35 world leaders, one of which was German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who called out the NSA after finding out and said this act of snooping was just unacceptable between friends. Brutal. She said the F word too. She's like, hey, we were friends, pal. Don't go through my phone. Don't swipe left in the photos, okay? Betrayal. Well, it was also reported that the NSA was monitoring regular phone calls in Spain for the average folks. So if you thought you were off the hook, you're not, literally and figuratively. They monitored about 60 million calls in 1 month. So yeah, world leader or not, be a little concerned about these guys. Maybe. Save some tea for in person. You don't want to give up all that good stuff on the phone. Number 5, leaked voters. Back in December 2015, personal information from 191 million voters was leaked to the public online. Yeah, this feels like yesterday. I remember this all unfolding. I was like, what? How? Researcher Chris Vickery found this data while conducting a security investigation. See, Forbes had described Vickery as, dare I say, a good hacker. They're what's referred to as these white hat hackers. They find weak spots in security without sabotaging or exploding them, unlike Snowden or other people. That's the key. That's the Donnie difference. 79% of those eligible to vote were the victims here, so it was a big one. All their names, addresses, birth dates, phone numbers, emails, you name it. Things you don't want other people knowing, let alone third parties, were all out there. If you could vote, you were exposed. We're still unsure who was behind this entire leak. CSO Online and databreaches.net suggest that the information more than likely came from software provider Nation Builder, but CEO Jim Gilliam announced that that was not the case and they did not create the database. Although he conceded that it is possible that some of the information that it contains may have come from the data we make available for free to campaigns. He's like, no, we didn't do it, but maybe we did. It's like, okay. So a third party took what they could and really ran with it. That's terrifying. Time to change your email. Again. Number 4, psychoelectronic weapons. Yeah, this sounds like something Iron Man uses. It doesn't sound too chill now, does it? Psychoelectronic weapons. The first time Curtis Waltman heard of these was by accident, as you could have guessed. He was receiving documents via Yahoo and they were not what he expected. See, originally he had filed a Freedom of Information Act request to Washington State Fusion Center. See, he was trying to find out more on the clashes between Antifa and the far right, but he got a response and it was all about experimental weapons. Guy gets a zip file back in return called EM Effects on Human Body. He's like, Big Shiny Tune 6? He's like, what? I didn't ask for this. Way too many viruses in that one. Big Shiny Tune 7, I think, was the good one. That's the good one. In this document, he saw diagrams on these weapons and the effects that they have on people. There's muscle quaking, all body pain. One of the effects allowed users to control their dreams. Is this a weapon? This is pretty remarkable. This was clearly sent by mistake. The only emails I get are student loans, and those ones are not by mistake. Those ones are definitely on purpose. They're like, Mr. Taylor. I'm like, oh God, they found me. Number 3, quantum computer. This next one's pretty eye-opening. Here we go. Computers are getting more and more advanced by the day. Deepfakes are also getting way too good. I've fallen for way too many fake trailers. I thought they were doing a Back to the Future reboot with Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. for like 4 days. All fake. Whole thing's fake. But thanks to our man Snowden, the OG secret revealer, it was reported in the Washington Post on January 2nd, 2014, that the NSA is working hard at creating their own computer. Yeah, how fun must that one be? I wonder if it can run Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 without getting hot. No computer can do that. It's called the quantum computer and it costs about $80 million to create this program. This computer is safely stored in a massive room-sized metal box, not intimidating at all. It's part of a program called Penetrating Hard Targets. So it can break encryptions for just about anything. Finance records, medical, your old MSN, hopefully, maybe, probably, definitely not. What a nightmare that would be. The NSA is well on their way to breaking every form of public encryption. This quantum computer can theoretically break through any RSA encryption, which for the average computer today, that takes years. This supercomputer they're working on can break through a lot faster. You can get through in days, even hours. So you better clear that search history now while you still can. Thanks for the hot tips, Snowden. I was gonna switch to PC gaming, but you know what? I'll wait it out. I'll wait till this new one comes out. It looks a little faster. Number 2, WikiLeaks war logs. Companies have to be somewhere, right? We're in a film studio in Toronto. We go to a certain place. We leave said certain place in a said certain area. Right? Where do places like WikiLeaks live? How do they stay secure? Well, in Stockholm, apparently, buried under 100 feet below street level in an old nuclear bunker. That's where. Right next to Pirate Bay. They're neighbors, actually. They knock on the cement walls. Today, it's a facility owned by Swedish internet provider Bahnhof. Now, this is where they keep servers for WikiLeaks, but Julian Assange, frontrunner of this whole operation, his hard drive is in this bunker, behind a 2-foot steel door, accompanied by numerous backup generators, so he's secure. In October 2010, WikiLeaks actually published Army field reports from 2004 to 2009. Now, it's one of the biggest leaks in US history. This report confirmed that there were over 66,000 civilian deaths in the Iraq war logs out of the 109,000 confirmed in total. That's horrible. This leak also suggested that some American troops were classifying civilians as enemies in their statistics afterwards. These numbers were from 2004 to 2009. One of the biggest leaks in US history, no doubt about it. And finally, number 1, Watergate. Yeah, it's not an internet leak, but it's too good to talk about. This is OG, come on. We have to finish on Watergate. In the middle of 1972, there were 5 men who were all arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. Now, it was pretty obvious they intended on bugging the place. They looked like spy kids. They had all the gears. They were, it was fishy. As the year went on, the election came closer and closer, and then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork comes this anonymous source who fed information to Washington Post reporters that apparently the Watergate bugging incident was a massive campaign of political spying and sabotage kicked off by none other than President Nixon himself. Yeah, he was trying to get that re-election. Now, despite this information leak and it being reported in the news and all that good stuff, Nixon was still re-elected, even though he was involved in this entire scandal. These men were clearly linked to a fundraising group for Nixon, but his administration just kept denying any involvement. It wasn't until a year later, in 1972, when reporters Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, they also came forward and exposed more stuff. Yeah, they exposed the administration's role in this entire scandal, and they had an inside source, an FBI agent named Mark Feltz, and this ultimately led to Nixon resigning later in 1974, the first president to do so.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the nukes. This one should come as no surprise. The US president is always accompanied by a military aide who is holding what's known as the nuclear football, a black briefcase that contains the secret plans necessary for the president to launch a nuclear attack. This is needed for when the president is visiting a place with no US control room, such as a foreign country. The plans involve details of nuclear stockpiles, damage estimates, and how to launch a strike on anywhere in the world within just 30 minutes. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the personal lives of world leaders. In the past, it was common knowledge that the FBI would actually deliver presidents' reports on the personal lives of other politicians or prominent Americans. They would contain really personal information. It seems that they don't do this anymore, but the CIA and NSA still regularly provide the White House with information on foreign leaders, politicians, or business people. These contain everything from drug habits, financial problems, criminal links, family squabbles, and even their sexual preferences. Is that all just part of a very full report, or a little bit too much information? Next up at number 8 now, we have conspiracy theories. There have been a lot of conspiracy theories about the US government over the years. There are two big examples that jump to mind. Roswell, where conspiracy theorists think that the US has covered up a UFO crash in New Mexico in 1947, and the JFK assassination, where some people believe that foreign powers or even the US government itself killed President Kennedy. Whether or not conspiracy theories like this are actually true, the president will have access to the absolute final truth. When the JFK files were declassified in 2017, President Trump knew the contents of them ahead of the public release and urged for their release to help put the conspiracy theories to bed. But if you know conspiracy theories, that's not really how they work. Moving on to number 7 now, we have spy satellites. Spy satellites wouldn't be much good if everyone knew where they were in the sky. The president receives briefings on US spy satellites from the National Reconnaissance Office, an intelligence agency so secretive that nobody even knew it existed until 1992, 32 years after its creation. The president is told not only where the spy satellites and aircraft are, but also confidential information on their design. Experts estimate there could be up to 12 different types of stealth spy satellites and aircraft that the US has never publicly acknowledged. Coming in number 6 now, we have counter-terrorism reports. In an effort to stay one step ahead of terrorism, the US government must keep the information they have to as few people as possible. One of them is obviously the president. The president receives regular briefings on domestic terror threats and potential suspects. One famous example of this came after 9/11, when George Bush met every single morning with the FBI director to review what they called a threat matrix. Barack Obama set aside Tuesday afternoons to review unfolding investigations in what the White House referred to as Terror Tuesday. Not sure how I feel about that. Pretty dark joke. At number 5 now, we have the secret law. This is the term used to describe directives the president signs that the rest of the world will never ever know about. One famous example came in 2015 when Barack Obama released a policy labeled as Directive Number 30. That was strange because the last directive he had signed was labeled as Number 28. So where was 29? Well, that was considered a secret law. Presidents have done this before. Sign off on a directive that the public will never know about. That's usually because they involve serious issues such as nuclear weapons, relationships with other countries, or powers the presidents will have in the middle of a crisis. Next up at number 4 now, we have secret agents. If everyone knew the location of US secret agents, it would kind of defeat their purpose. The president can request to know the details of secret agents, whether they be working on American soil or foreign countries, drug enforcement or counter-terrorism. This also includes non-Americans around the world who were being paid by the US for their services or cooperation. I used to be one of them, but then I thought I'd be a YouTube host instead. Change it up a bit. Coming at number 3 now, we have Directive 58. To put this one quite simply, Directive 58 is the plan for how the US presidency will survive the end of the world. It was devised in the wake of the Cold War when the US began to contemplate what life would be like if the country was hit by a nuclear strike. Directive 58 contains the plans for how the government would operate in that crisis. For example, if Washington DC was hit, government members would be relocated to a special facility on top of Mount Weather in Virginia. Also, it dictates what resources the government would need to rebuild itself after a nuclear war. Perhaps most importantly, it contains the plans for what to do if the president himself was killed in a nuclear attack. Next up, number 2 now, we have Beyond Top Secret. There's secret, there's top secret, and then there's Beyond Top Secret. These are US operations that only a handful of people on the planet will ever know about. A new US president is then brought into that group after being sworn in. Sometimes the world learns about these so-called special access programs a while after they take place. One example is when Obama was told of the joint US-Israeli efforts to disable Iran's nuclear program through cyber attacks. Sometimes these operations aren't even conducted on perceived enemies of the US. The Edward Snowden leaks revealed that US intelligence regularly listens to telephone calls of foreign officials such as German leader Angela Merkel, and this is all information that the president would have access to. And finally, at the number 1 spot now, we have the kill list. This is a fairly new one. The president has the ability to sign off on strikes from drones run by the CIA and the Pentagon. Political assassinations are not okay, but Barack Obama and George Bush used this power to kill suspected terrorists in countries such as Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Iraq and Afghanistan. An added part of this is that the president can actually watch the drone strikes live. Apparently this was something that George Bush did regularly during morning intelligence briefings. Would you do that if you were the president, or is that a little bit too much to stomach before lunch?